I lived for the smell of fresh blueprints. I loved the feel of a well-worn T-square against my desk. I dreamed of skyscrapers that touched the clouds and bridges that spanned impossible distances.
Suho, you see, was a builder, a dreamer, a civil engineering student with his sights set on the stars. He spent his days hunched over textbooks, his nights wrestling with complex equations. He devoured knowledge like a starving man presented with a feast.
Every bridge I analyzed, every skyscraper I researched, fueled my passion. I was determined to leave my mark on the world, one magnificent structure at a time.
His current obsession, a design for a revolutionary earthquake-resistant bridge. It was a project for his most challenging class, and Suho was determined to make it his masterpiece. He knew it would require countless hours, sleepless nights, and enough caffeine to fuel a small city. But for Suho, it was more than just a grade. It was a chance to prove himself, to show the world what he was capable of. The air in Suho's dorm room hung heavy with the smell of instant ramen and desperation. Empty energy drink cans littered the desk like fallen soldiers. The glow of his laptop screen cast an eerie pallor across his face.
I'd been at it for over 24 hours straight, fueled by caffeine and sheer willpower. The deadline loomed like a monstrous gargoyle, its shadow stretching ever closer.
Suho rubbed his bloodshot eyes, his fingers tracing the dark circles beneath them. He could feel a dull throbbing in his temples, a sure sign that he was pushing himself too far. But he couldn't stop now, not when he was so close to finishing. The bridge design was almost complete, its intricate details a testament to his dedication and passion. Just a few more calculations, a final flourish of his digital pen, and it would be ready.
Suddenly, a wave of dizziness washed over me. The room started to spin, the lines on my computer screen blurring into an indistinguishable mess. My body, pushed to its absolute limit, finally gave in.
With a groan, Suho slumped forward, his face landing with a soft thud on his keyboard. The last thing he remembered was the strange metallic taste in his mouth before darkness swallowed him whole. Suho awoke to the feeling of cool silk sheets against his skin. He blinked, his eyes struggling to adjust to the soft glow emanating from what appeared to be oil lamps. Gone was the harsh glare of his laptop screen, the familiar clutter of his dorm room replaced by an opulence he'd only ever seen in history books.
Panic seized me as I sat up, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. The room was enormous, the walls adorned with intricate tapestries depicting scenes of battles and mythical creatures. Sunlight streamed through arched windows, painting the polished marble floor in warm hues. It was like waking up inside a museum exhibit.
Where was he? How did he get here? The last thing he remembered was collapsing in his dorm room, his bridge design still unfinished. Had someone taken him to a hospital? But this wasn't any hospital he'd ever seen. He was surrounded by an odd mix of luxury and antiquity, a strange juxtaposition that made his head spin.
A wave of nausea washed over me, and I realized I was still dressed in my rumpled jeans and t-shirt, a stark contrast to the opulence surrounding me. It felt like a cruel joke, a bizarre dream from which I couldn't seem to wake. As the days bled into weeks, I slowly began to accept the unbelievable truth. I wasn't in Kansas anymore, or rather, I wasn't in my own time anymore.
Suho had somehow been transported to a world that seemed ripped straight out of a history book, a world of swords and sorcery, of kings and queens, of castles that scraped the clouds.
I'd been found unconscious by the side of a dusty road, mistaken for a victim of bandits. My saviors, a gruff but kind group of merchants, had nursed me back to health in a nearby town.
It was a bustling hub of activity filled with sights and sounds that both fascinated and terrified him. Horses and carts jostled for space with people in strange, colorful clothes. The air hummed with unfamiliar languages, the scent of exotic spices mingling with the pungent aroma of animal dung.
I had never felt so out of place, so utterly alone. My attempts to explain my situation were met with bewildered stares and nervous laughter. I quickly learned to keep my mouth shut, to observe and absorb everything around me.
This world, he realized, was nothing like the history books had described. It was wilder, more vibrant, more dangerous.
Despite the initial shock and disorientation, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of excitement. This new world, for all its strangeness and danger, presented me with a unique opportunity.
Suho might not have his laptop, his textbooks, or his trusty T-square, but he still had the one thing this world seemed to lack: advanced engineering knowledge. He saw it in the rickety wooden bridges that swayed precariously under the weight of a few carts, in the crumbling stone walls that threatened to topple with the next strong wind.
I saw it in the fear in people's eyes when they talked about the treacherous mountain passes, the impassable rivers that divided their kingdom. My fingers itched to sketch, to design, to build. I yearned for the familiar feel of a drafting table beneath my hands, the satisfying scratch of a pencil on paper.
He knew that his knowledge, his skills could make a real difference in this world. He could be a bridge between two eras, a conduit of knowledge that could change the very fabric of their society.
I started small, offering suggestions to local craftsmen, using my understanding of physics and geometry to improve their designs. At first, they were hesitant, skeptical of this strange, out-of-place young man with his crazy ideas. But once they saw the results, the increased stability, the improved efficiency, their skepticism melted away like snow in the summer sun.
Word of Suho's skills spread like wildfire through the kingdom. What started as whispers in crowded taverns soon reached the ears of those in power.
Before long, I found myself standing before the king, a wizened old man with eyes that held the weight of 1,000 battles.
The king, intrigued by tales of a young man who could tame rivers and command stone, presented Suho with a challenge to build a bridge across the treacherous Serpent's Pass, a feat deemed impossible by the kingdom's finest engineers. It was a test, a chance for Suho to prove his worth, to earn his place in this strange new world.
Standing before the king, the weight of the kingdom's expectations heavy on my shoulders, I smiled. This wasn't a challenge. It was an opportunity, a chance to leave my mark on history, to build something truly extraordinary.
Suho might not be able to go home, not yet anyway, but maybe, just maybe, he could build a new one. A future for himself in this fantastical past. A future written in stone and steel, a future that bore the unmistakable signature of Suho Kim, the engineer who fell through time.